Yo, what's up, everybody? Welcome to one of the most anticipated episodes of OTHErspace PM ever, I'd say. This is one of the most important episodes ever, Sean. Do you agree? Welcome, Sean. How are you,
Yeah,
bro?
it's a pretty short list, dude, of episodes. So I
I know.
could say
Welcome
it's
to
one of the
episode
most important
9.
ones.
Welcome to episode 9, the most important episode we've ever had. The reason why,
Shit.
because Sean's here today and I'm here today, and we're talking about Legends of the Mara, guys. Legends of the Mara is live.
LoTM is out.
Things are happening. Things are cooking. People are speculating. We're getting a little bit more insight to what a coda is. We got a little bit more insight to how the vessels and nesting process works. We got a little bit more access to our fragments and kind of figuring out how we're going to go about collecting those. There was a little bit of glitch, and the fighting aspect worked for a quick second. I believe Sean got in. I didn't get in, so we'll discuss that in a bit. And that should be up, I'm hoping, by tomorrow,
Oh,
but we'll
is
get
it
into
not
it.
up yet, dude? I haven't logged in since, so we'll
It's
have
been a
to
long
check.
day.
We have
I
to
don't
check.
think it I don't think it is up, but um
Dang.
yeah, before we get to that, man, um you said you haven't got a chance to look at it. Should we bring it up, go over to it? Cuz this is going to be one of those things. Okay, hold on. Let me put a quick pause. I definitely still want to talk about the BAPE BAYC collab and how that's going to be coming through at Hong Kong, a
Yeah.
worldwide limited edition drop. This makes sense. This makes sense. This makes sense, and I want one. Whatever it is, I want one. But that's just an aside because we got to talk about that, but we got to focus mainly on Legends of the Mara. That's the most anticipated thing on our radar. So,
So what do you know about BAPE, man? Because I feel like there's a lot of people that don't even know about BAPE. And they're
yeah.
they're probably questioning like, why does this make sense for Yuga, for Bored Apes? How does this benefit Yuga? So I'm
All right. Well, I'm gonna give Sean a second to pop back in, but I think he was asking me what is BAPE, and to be honest, as far as I know, it's a streetwear brand. There we go. I was just carrying on. As far as I know, BAPE is a streetwear brand that really has kind of developed overseas. As what I knew, it was like a Asian streetwear company. I wasn't sure if it was Japanese. I thought it was, but beside that, I do remember the BAPE stars being a big thing. Them looking very, very close to Air Force Ones. There was a whole thing with that. And then back in my resale days, Bape stars were always something nice to sell because that was a quick flip. So what I do know about Bape is that their logo is also this ape, right? And so when Board Ape Yacht Club first happened, a lot of us were like, "Oh, that's the most obvious. That's just the most obvious," because it was low hanging fruit in that thought process, right? So for a lot of people, there's probably a lot more that they know, and for a lot of people, there's a lot less that they know. But I'm kind of right there in the middle. I'm aware of them. I get their cultural
yeah,
significance.
you were into sneakers. You were also selling sneakers. So you kind of saw like what some of the items from a bathing ape, costed and what people were really paying for. I was gonna say you can't explain bait without just mentioning Nego. This is one of the goats, one of the legends. He's the one who started a bathing ape and really was kind of looked at as like the designer, who no longer, I think he's more so kind of focused on his like a new thing, like a human made. However, a bathing ape, it was all the rage back in the day, especially with the likes of Pharrell. I remember the website had like a Pharrell beat on it as well. And,
Yeah.
for people who were just tapped into culture, this was like one of the most culture rich streetwear brands. And it really kind of extended into other things like BBC and all like Billionaire Boys Club and ice creams. And there was an ice cream skate team and then like a bathing ape and all these like brands and just the streetwear culture was just all about it, especially during that time. And
Yeah.
it was like coming up in a time where also like this was pre hype days too, like
Right.
where like there was a whole bunch of like online selling. But when it started to kind of come into online reselling and stuff like that, Bape was just kind of a given. You know what I mean? Because they've been in that game. So it's the collaborations. If you've ever heard of Supreme, you know, a
Yeah.
lot of people hear about that and kind of understand it. You know, even Bored Ape Yacht Club has been compared to Supreme in terms of like what the brand could be and streetwear merch. But a bathing ape kind of precedes that, even. You know
Right.
what I mean?
Right.
And they even have like apes. I forget if that's how you pronounce it, but I went to you, and you're right. Like it was it was based out of Japan. I just recently went to Tokyo, went to a bathing ape store.
Nice.
Few
How
of the
was that?
bathing
How
ape
was it?
store, uh, it's good, man. I mean, they're really dope. It's really expensive. It's really expensive, and that's why
It,
you have like some of these offshoots of the brand, where they have a little more like affordable pieces, kind of
right.
a little more loud and out there.
Well, and this is a
But
good reference point to give to people watching who may not know this, is this brand is more a little bit on the pricier end of things. It's not like, you know, where you would be like the Walmart price point of like the $15-20 or whatever. This is more on the higher end, like street style pricing, a little bit higher fashion, I'd imagine. Like if they were to drop a t-shirt like this, Sean, what are you guessing? 100 bucks?
probably like $80 for like a, you know, a nice high quality t-shirt right there.
Yeah, yeah. Do you
But
think they're gonna produce other products like this camo or like this toilet paper down here with the BAPE or
well,
the
that's
stuffed
already out.
animal?
The toilet paper, they, you know, that's already been out. You know, my good friend of mine has it in his bathroom, and it's in this glass case. It says, "In case of emergency, break glass," and it has 4 rolls in there.
That's hilarious. That's
But
fucking hilarious.
yeah, they have like some cool products, some cool collabs. And they're, like I said, going to Japan, they're everywhere, you know, and that is really significant too.
Yeah,
You know, I would just go around, and I remember just taking pictures of it because it was just apes, 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 you know,
I
and
love that.
yeah, and like they have such great relevance. And so I think from a culture standpoint, this actually, like this cosign, because that's what it is. It's a cosign. If Bape and a bathing ape is co-signing Bored Ape Yacht Club, that's awesome.
That's
Because
huge.
all the people that, you know, really understand culture, streetwear culture, a bathing ape, all of that are going to actually like, yo, Bored Ape Yacht Club is cool in my book.
Right.
And I really want this exclusive set if it's going to be announced globally and there's a limited supply. So I think there's, you know, it's hitting on a lot of things like culturally that's going to be pretty dope.
I'm
And if
hoping they drop a pair of sneakers, dog, because you know those will be fire.
why else would they put that out there, dude?
Right? Just to
Why
tease
else?
me. What does that say right there? BAPE, STAD. I need glasses, but I think that's what that says. Ooh, you know what's funny about this is, Spen, right? He's always wearing
Yeah.
these Bape shorts right here. So I wonder if he was like, "Yo, we better get this going." Like probably his baby, his brainchild. Well,
Yeah,
Sean, I appreciate you
they
giving
also
us
had
such
the
context because
hoodies,
that's a lot of
you know,
breakdown.
the hoodies where it zips up from the front and it
Oh
has
yeah,
the
yeah.
face. Like,
Oh
how
yeah.
sick would that be if we got like a version of that too?
I'm hoping for a hoodie, a t-shirt, maybe some kind of like button up, a pair of sneakers, and a plush. Like 5 things would be great.
But you know, honestly, that's one of the things that I think they have to do. They got to come out with like a capsule or collection. You know, that would be
Right.
smart. Because and we were talking about it with I forget the guy who was a guest
I want to
on
say it was David something.
The Grateful Show, yeah, and it was, like, for the Ugly Dolls, and he
Right.
gave away some really great alpha too, but in terms of, like, he was just saying, like, "Hey, you don't wanna just do a plush doll, like, do something else that has" hey, congrats, welcome to the
Welcome.
club,
That's
damn, Chucky. Shit.
that's dope.
But, hell yeah, thanks for tapping in with us, man. But, so like just the plush doll, you might want to like have other things to complement because in a retail store you want to command space.
Bro.
Ideally have your own little setup, and one way to do that is to create other ancillary products that kind of come into it, and that would be dope, right? Like if there was like a bathing ape plush doll along with a t-shirt, along with shoes, along with whatever it might be, some other accessory. I think just imagining it in a physical retail spot, you kind of want to build, like, you want to command the space, and you can do that by complementing it with other products. Otherwise, if you just have a doll, you're going to complement that with other products anyway. And so
Right.
if it can all be like that collection, it just makes a huge impact. Yo, rugs, hell yeah, Anthony. I think there's a lot of opportunity. I'd love to see that. And then with the new um hire that Yuga had, that's in charge of kind of merchandising and partnerships and stuff like that. Like I can see more and more of things like this that could be solid for the brand. That also gives BAYC, MAYC holders that utility of being able to have access to those exclusive drops for like significant drops like this.
Yeah, yeah, I'm excited to see how it plays out. My first thought was seeing that it's for the Hong Kong drop and that it'd be a limited amount. And I'm like, shit, I really hope that I can get that online experience. Like if there's a t-shirt exclusive to Hong Kong, okay, so be it. I'm positive someone will put it on eBay. I'll buy one. But those are a lot of great points.
We'll
And
get
it's kind
access
of
to it though.
interesting. It's kind of interesting. I'm gonna bring this picture up of the homie right here supporting Pudgies. And talking about like products being out in stores, like this is a big deal happening coincidingly with the times that we're in. And I want to take a minute to appreciate the fact that we see other projects out here making moves and bringing themselves to a wider audience. But
Yeah.
that's just a quick aside, because we got to share
Oh
love and
man.
appreciate but the big
I
things
like
that people
that.
are doing out
I
there.
like that. I
But
just saw this too.
yeah,
Walmart posted it,
bro,
so
that's fucking huge.
yeah, that's I don't know how many people like follow Walmart to engage with them every day, but lots of impressions, obviously.
The
Um,
fact that they're making waves for us, like I'm good with that. Web3, there's not a
yo, I
lot of
love it.
projects left.
You go to Walmart's site, it's like you might like Amazon, McDonald's, Walmart.
Yeah. Do you sit at home and like to order shit and have it brought to
Yeah.
you? We
But
got you.
but that's dope that, even within their first year, they were able to get a distribution deal with one of the largest
Oh
distributors.
yeah.
And and from my understanding, there's revenue share that goes to the community.
I know, bro. It makes me wonder if I should get a Pudgy. I saw Luca post if Pudgy's under 10 ETH is basically free, and I'm like, shit. I wish I had
Wait,
extra
you
money
heard
to
that?
buy one.
God
Yeah,
damn.
I don't know.
How much revenue do you think they're gonna get?
My
Damn.
first thought was, be careful with what you say, young man. But let's get to the point that I'm sure a lot of people are excited to hang out with us today. Is we got to jump into Legends of the Mara, and we got to talk about it. We got to share some thoughts. I would love to cover briefly the FAQ and the game guide. We don't have to go over it entirely in depth. Maybe we'll do that in a different video. We'll break them down because there's a lot there. But Sean, let's jump into it, man, and kind of explore this a little bit together. This is what we've had, which is the other side. The Legends of the Mara is what we have now. You got to get into the battle, but all I got access to was the camp, right?
Mm.
The camp, is basically a point where you're going to go and see what you have. You're going to have access to your creatures, which in this case are codas. You have your vessels, which I have currently nesting, or you can see all. This becomes part of the game where we really start to discover how we're going to use our deeds and how we're going to use our creatures and vessels, right? And if we're looking at fragments here, you can kind of see that there's some already being accumulated. Biogenic swamp, there's already 1% of it gone. And these are global remaining fragments, right? So this is a number that once it's depleted, it's gone for season 1 at least, right? So myself, I went with the route of 3 codas placed. I have 3 vessels nested and trying to figure, or 4 vessels nested rather. I didn't pay to upgrade them, but you can. I believe you did, Sean, and I was there to see how it went down. I'm going to be patient. I don't have ApeCoin to spend right now, so I got to wait 6 days, 17 hours. For a lot of people, this is a very passive game, right? Because I kept thinking like, well, I've done it. Now what do I do?
All right. Let's slow
Let's
down.
jump.
Let's slow
Yeah,
down. This
let's go back.
Jason, I love it, man, because this motherfucker goes 0 to 100, going from 0 vessels a couple days ago. First of all, you had.
I used to have 24 vessels.
That's what I'm saying. All right, this guy had 24 vessels,
and today I have 1.
And today you now have 1, but it looks like you got more.
So I've partnered with NFT Traveler, and we've decided to merge our assets into one gaming, community team, because why would we separate our assets if they could play together and we feel comfortable merging them together, right? So
yeah, because
that
that
seemed like
really
the
is the
smartest play.
strategy.
And it led. Go ahead, Sean.
No, but you first, Jason.
All right. So what I've learned is, look, you see how I have 8 deeds here, and we have 3 other deeds on a different wallet currently. All I have is 1 deed actually doing anything. Besides that, I have all these other deeds not being accessed because I don't have that
You're
plethora.
nesting.
I
You're
don't have.
nesting.
Yeah, sure, I'm nesting, but I don't have that plethora. I'm not farming them, right? I'm not acquiring any resources for these assets that I have access to the resources. So now it becomes the question of like, what is the best strategy for me to work with these? And I'm sure a lot of people are going through that same, right? Because right now, all that I'm acquiring is for every 11 hours, I'm acquiring 7 biogenic swamp fragments, right? So I did the math. If I leave it for a week, it's like 100-ish biogenic swamp fragments at this rate, right? Using 2 codas as enchanters and 1 as the farmer, while I'm letting the other ones nest because I don't have any ape coin to speed them up, and I don't want to pay $50 per vessel to kind of speed it up to get that Mara to fill these spots, right? So that's where I'm at. I'm doing a lot of thinking. I'm doing a lot of thinking about how can I benefit and use my resources that I own, right? Like, do I start to, how do I start to maximize my return, right? Because this is where it began, Sean. Is we put a ton of at least for me, I put not a ton, but I put a lot of ETH into these deeds and into this gaming experience. So for me, I really want to maximize my return. And having all these deeds with only 1 really being used, that's not maximizing my return. But all of these have individual artifacts that are quite, valuable. So this has a mecha piece. This has a Tavo. This has Coda Farts. This has a Coda Axe. I'm not really sure what the strategy is, right? So a lot of
that doesn't come into
pondering, a
play
lot of
right
thought.
now.
It does in a bit, but I'm gonna let you tap in because that was a lot of thoughts I shared all at once.
Yeah, I was just saying, like, right now it doesn't have any effect whether you have an artifact or anything like that. I'm
Oh yeah, that
sure
part.
it's
That
going to
part.
come in. I want to get to the chat too because you're asking
Yeah.
some really great questions, but I gotta say, like, just logging into this, everyone is still figuring out. This is open beta. It launched today. a lot of people are logging in using Warm Wallet as like using their delegated wallet. And so that way, I got my ledger, all my assets are on a cold wallet, and I'm logging in using my hot wallet. And I've used warm.xyz
Same
to
here.
take all of the assets and put it in there. I've also, because we've had to manage the OTHERspace.eth account, which we have an other deed and a vessel, and we wanted to hatch that vessel, or not hatch the vessel, we wanted to claim the vessel. I used Warm Wallet as well for that wallet, OTHERspace.eth, to delegate to this hot wallet. So multiple wallets are pointing
Oh, that's
to
pretty
this
cool.
to this hot wallet. Yeah, so you can have multiple wallets that are pointing to it. And I also have one other wallet that it's pointing to this wallet, and it has like one of the things. But in order to hatch the vessel, you have to nest it, and that's what I wanted to show over here. Like, that's one of the first things you're going to want to do.
I
Anyone who
still have
wants to
so many questions about where things go, man. This is great that we're doing this, Sean. I'm sorry to that was just an
Yes.
excitement statement, man. Also, it's a PM, so I'm having whiskey. I know you're having tea, but I'm having
Yeah,
whiskey.
man, I'm feeling a little under the weather lately. I got it from my kids, dude, and
Drinking
it's been rough, but cheers, dude.
cheers. I'm drinking out of Ape Harbor. Remember that project?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I do.
Famous
The
pictures of
yachts.
boats. Pictures of boats.
So yeah, it even says 6 days, 18 hours. This is the vessel
Can you bring it
that
up on the screen?
oh shit. Yeah, sorry about that.
So this is the Otherspacedeed that we currently own. And one of the things that I'm curious about, because you said you have them merged all to one wallet, is like, where do the fragments go? Right? Do they go
Mhm.
to the main wallet, or do they go to the wallet that's accessing them and doing the actions? So
It's
I'm
going to
very
go to the
curious.
wallet that's logged in right here. So before we start farming and all that, we may want to just create another separate sign in so that any, fragments, rewards like that gets claimed by like in a separate wallet and doesn't get mixed up.
That is what I had wondered. Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. According to the FAQ, which we can maybe revisit that shortly if you'd like. But
Yeah, absolutely.
one of the things that you gotta just get going on is they even mentioned it in the LOTM game blog that codas have a distinct advantage that they can actually immediately start in Legends of the Mara and skip the nesting period. And so that's the first thing is like codas have that unique advantage where they can actually get going, get farming, or hunt shattered. Vessels need to nest. And that's the first thing you can do and what you want to do if you have if you have another deed and a vessel is get your vessels nested. There's, at first I'm like, I wonder if there's any sort of benefit to nesting on a particular deed. Like, should I nest a vessel that's on biogenic swamp versus chemical goo, etc.?
That's what I wondered as well.
I don't think there is any effect, to be honest with you. I think
Well,
they're all just like RNG when it comes to the rarity, and there are rarities for the different vessels.
right.
Um, but that's what I got going on right here. 80196. We got 80196, the vessel right here assigned
Mhm.
to it. And I don't want to take it off because it's almost like we already have some time dedicated to it. I'm
Right,
afraid
right.
it's going to reset.
Right, and it does, right? Once you place it and hit that X, it'll ask you if you wanna cancel out the time, and it will, and it kinda starts over. So, it seems as if this is almost like a staking mechanism for a lot of these things, right? And that's kind of how I'm looking at this card game for myself. Is a lot of this is figuring out how to stake your things that you have to.
Ooh,
Oh, the
PM said.
time doesn't reset.
So if I click the X, it doesn't say anything. And to Nessus Vessel, I'll just drag it right back.
All right, let's see that. This is major alpha.
Nice.
Okay,
Nice.
so that one's already accumulated time as okay. That's awesome. That's
That's
incredibly
great.
cool.
That's
Yeah.
great. So, so here's the thing. Let's just say hypothetically this was your only deed and your only vessel. You essentially have the option to speed it up by buying Mist, and you can purchase Mist. One ape coin equals about 127 Mist.
And what is missed?
That is the in-game currency for Legends of the Mara that can be purchased with ApeCoin.
Got it. Yeah, that
Oh, this
totally
is
makes
cool.
sense.
PM said you can move to a different deed and it'll still be the last timing. Can also move to a different deed. So
So that's
that's
interesting.
that's dope.
If you buy a vessel, it might have a nested time. Does it work that way? I wonder. Right?
Maybe, I
Like
don't know.
if I buy one and they're like, "Yo, this one only has an hour versus this one has 7 days."
Yeah,
I
but
don't
there
know.
wouldn't be a way to see that. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
this is just very interesting. So now that we have this here, right? And for other Space PM, we have this 5-tier deed. We only have one hunter vessel. We don't have anything to place in those slots up above. We don't have 3 enchanters to place down below. When we get that hunter, we put it into action. It can't farm. It can't do any. It can't acquire any resources for us. It can just fight. What is a strategy you think we should do with just this one deed for other space FM? Like, is there a world in which we add more to this? Is there a world in which the community adds vessels to this and we communally, disperse whatever we get from it? Like,
yeah,
just
we
this is just
were
a thought, and a
no,
curiosity.
I mean that's the thing. I'm kind of going into it like a lot of people would go in here. They'd be like, "Okay, I nested the vessel. If I'm not going to speed it up, what can I do? Nothing. You wait until your vessel is ready to hatch, and then if you want, you could speed up, hatch it, and then in this case, if you have a hunter, you can assign it to one of the worker slots. The thing is, like you just mentioned, this is environment tier 5. The leaderboard, which I'm hoping. Let me see if I'm able to get in. Dang it. Okay. So the leaderboard for the Shattered game is split up with environment tier 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So in this particular case, you would be in the environment tier 5 leaderboard. And based on how well your hunter is doing, whatever your ranking is, you'll be in contention for certain rewards.
Right. Right.
This would put us in a disadvantage if we are focusing on hunting with just one slot out of 5 available slots.
Right.
And we wouldn't be high on that leaderboard. This would have been more ideal if we have just one vessel, if we had like a tier 1, because with a tier 1, it'll be more efficient. Like you'll be able to put that hunter slot in there. And then if you have like some enchanters, that's what these bottom 3 are slots are for. You can put up to 3 enchanters, which help a lot. And yeah, I remember like prior to the Shattered kind of going down where it's not available anymore, I was checking the leaderboard, and as I was kind of like playing this Shattered, I believe it was on this deed over here, 90338, and in rank 31, I was in contention for like 8 epic ship parts. So they have all different kinds of rewards in
I
that
haven't even
environment tier.
seen that part yet, man.
Yeah, they have in each environment tier, they have a certain supply of rewards.
Okay,
And
so let me redigest this real quick. So if I have a tier 1 and I'm playing it, I'm only playing against tier 1 other people that own a tier 1. If I have a tier 5, I'm playing against other people that have a tier 5, right? So let's imagine that ratio in between means what it means. Let's say I have a tier 3. That means, do I figure out how to compete against the shattered and the battle and the ranking and get the prizes that are rewarded through that? Or is it better for me to go ahead and farm that? And that's a decision you have to make based on how you can fill all those hunters and farmer slots, and then if you can maximize it with an enchanter, right?
yeah. Yeah, and that's why, like, that's where the strategy kind of comes into play. Like, one, you're just gonna, for many people, you're gonna work with whatever you got. But if you're strategizing along with us in preparation for Legends of the Mara, you would know like there should be like a good ratio or the best way to fill in your worker slots and have the appropriate amount of deeds that you'll be able to do so that you can reap the best rewards. So two different kind of like end metrics or rewards that you would want to maybe compete for by the end of the season. One would be more on the farming side, where you're farming sediment because there's a global supply of sediment
Right,
fragments, and the other would be the rewards in the leaderboards, which consists of ship parts in all different rarities, which kind of leads you into building your next spacecraft for the next part of the game.
right.
Um, it's similar to like Rec League, how they had like legendary, epic, all
Right,
the
right.
different
There's
parts.
mhm.
Well, same thing in here where they have like legendary ship parts, epic ship parts. And then if you are fighting the Shattered, you will be able to earn not only ship parts, but it'll also give you other. You have the ability to win other NFTs, even from different projects, and they even
Right,
separate it out where it's like Forgotten Runes,
right.
Ranga, and things like that.
And those are
So
projects I would love to win, but one of the things, I've had some friends ask me in the community, like, is there a reason why I would wanna jump on it tonight versus, like, wait a few days and play, right?
hell
And
yeah,
and of course there is. There's that competitive advantage, but there's also, it seems like they suggested that for these battles, there's opportunity to win prizes, and once those prizes are won, they're depleted from the prize pool in a matter of speaking, right? So, there may be good stuff, there may be bad stuff, but whatever it goes out, like they're not replenishing it for that particular season. They have, it seems like, a pool allocated of rewards is kind of what I took away from some of my readings today. So um
yeah, yeah.
it
It's
seems like they're
essentially global supply
right.
for
And that was
both.
another thing I wanted to ask you about. Let's accentuate on that. What does that mean, a global supply?
So, like, let's take fragments for instance. Right up here when you hover over fragments, it says global fragments remaining. And you're going to notice there's a certain amount for biogenic swamp, chemical goo, cosmic dream, infinite expanse, and rainbow atmos. And also something to kind of notice is there's less cosmic dream than there is chemical goo. And that could very well change due to the fact that there are other deeds that have yet to be expanded. And so, and
Right.
mind you, Yuga Labs has a fat wallet with a bunch of Cosmic Dream.
Right, right, and we saw
So,
that when we did that unlocked other decks, in Discord, and with that visualization of, like, how much of that circle they own.
yeah. So in this particular case, like if you're going for fragments, basically, and I like to kind of think about it similarly to like popcorn and G tags in
Right,
10 KTF. Like
sure.
there's going to be a catalysis event where you can transform your Mara into a Kodamara, and fragments are optional. If you have fragments, that will actually contribute to the rarity of your Kodamara. And so the more fragments that you have, potentially the more rare you'll have, the more rare your Kodamara might be.
And it sounds like the tier of fragment matters, right? So if I catalyze it with Rainbow Atmos versus Cosmic Dream versus Biogenic Swamp, I may get 3 different or results is what I'm taking away from that. I don't know, but potentially.
Potentially, yeah. And if they were to take away from, like, take any pointers from what 10KTF is doing, the cumulative amount of popcorn, or in this case sediment fragments, matter, because that'll dictate the rarity. But whatever popcorn, or in this case fragment, that you have the most of could very well be the one that actually has an effect on the aesthetics or something like that. So who knows? We don't know how the fragments kind of work out with the catalysis event and the Kodamara. We just know it's optional and it'll contribute to rarity. But it is possible that whatever you have the most of might actually show up, more prominently in that, because that's kind of how it is with popcorn and G tags. The
Right.
amount of popcorn actually dictates the class. But what also dictates, like, the class or the traits is the seasonal catalyst. And so I have a feeling like the way the Odiac, or the celestial kind of coordinate system or map, with the constellations, like, when you do the transformation from a Mara to a Kodamara, it will kind of take the traits from whatever the catalyst is,
Right.
and those will be the traits that your Kodamara will have. It's
Now,
possible
I
to
want to
have.
ask you real quick, like, what is like the catalyst that we're referencing, right? Have they told us what that is, or is that kind of us guessing? Like, it might be the creatures, like a Tavo or a Daniel, or is the catalyst the sediments and the fragments that we're acquiring that we're gonna ingest somehow?
This is like the main page right here. So after the Mara hatches, right, they talk about the Odiac, and then these are some of the constellations that are above, and each season corresponds to 5 Otherside constellations. But then they talk about seasonal catalysts, and it says when Amara ingests a seasonal catalyst, it evolves into a Kodamara that takes on traits possessed by that catalyst. Nearly all catalysts possess traits that belong to one or another of the season's constellations. So the catalysts possess traits that belong to one or another of the season's constellations. So it could very well come from traits from these constellations, right? Which are some of the creatures and pets. And then not only the most uncommon, all right, only the most uncommon kind of catalyst, the hybrid catalyst, possess traits that belong to 2. So they show some silhouettes right here. Who knows, like, if your Tavo comes into play with this.
Right.
But, this is, yeah, kind of like what Boomer is saying. This is kind of where it's like you get to decide if you want your Mara to evolve into a Kodamara that season.
Right.
So there are some things you should already be considering in that case, because, one, did you farm enough sediment fragments? Right? Because if not, maybe you might want to hold off on transitioning your Mara to a Kodamara, because even though sediment fragments are optional, you may want to have a good allotment just ready for your Mara to ingest that, so that your Kodamara could be more rare. You know what I mean? So, but at the same time, it's like if you do it earlier, that could be very well the only time some of the people will be able to have those traits, and then you won't ever be able to get those again. You know what I mean? And
No,
so,
absolutely, and I think that's very interesting, man, to think about how this game gives us some finite options, right? Like, there's a lot of thought to be had, and there's some certain things that will be like you get a one-time opportunity to do. And that's where I take away the seasonal catalyst is, do you act now? Do you wait and decide later? What is the best path for your gameplay yourself, right? Because it really kind of varies on how many assets you have and what you're trying to get out of the game. For myself, I have a decent amount of pieces, so I'm gonna have to figure out, like, do I want to catalyze one of my vessels and create a Kodamara, or do I want to leave them as they are and maybe revisit that thought process in the second season with maybe a new object or a new opportunity, right? I do want to ask you, Sean, as I'm kind of looking at your screen that's pulled up here, if we could go ahead and talk about the one where you have your coda and all your things equipped. I'd love to talk about why you decided to put these together in this way, just so people could kind of get an idea of what you've done. And then maybe we can revisit my screen and do the exact same thing with the one that I have available to give people a sort of reference of, our thoughts of why we put our vessels into
yeah.
this particular.
Yeah, this is where it gets fun because you start to strategize, and I think that's kind of where we're at. Like based on the given assets, whether you've been delegated to or whatnot, like you're going to need to do an assessment of what do you have available, and then how can you actually maximize your productivity.
Right.
And then speaking to Raw G, will fragments carry over to the next season? I would imagine so, and that's kind of why I would want to farm as many fragments. And as you can see, there is when you do harvest them, you be able to harvest after farming all these fragments, and then there's going to be a mint event where you'll be able to mint a batch of fragments, and so those will end up becoming 1155 tokens. So that makes it tradable, sellable, etc. on the open marketplace. So yeah, I would imagine the fragments are going to be that doing that, and the global supply will always remain at a global supply. And the only way the supply will get replenished is when someone ingests their Mara and turns it, when someone ingests sediment fragments for their Mara to turn into a Kodamara. So if someone was to take a bunch of biogenic swamp sediment fragments and transform their Mara to a Kodamara, those sediment fragments that were used get put back into the global supply.
That makes sense.
So
Yeah.
so that's how they'll end up replenishing that. But like here, the reason why I started focusing on this is one, this is the only biogenic swamp deed that I have. And you can see over here on the top left, they have like a little filter you can do. You can filter by biogenic swamp, chemical goo, rainbow atmos, etc. You can even do it by empty, like over here on the top right, you can sort by sediment tier if you wanted to. So if I'm farming, there's like a sediment tier 3 rainbow atmos. This might actually be the play for farming, because I'll get this amount of, and we can try it right now. I can start switching it up. But the reason why I started focusing on this was for several reasons. One, it's 2338. This is the deed that, my ape, it's the ape number. It's in the biogenic swamp. So I'm going for bioswamp sediment fragments. And it's a tier 3, which is actually pretty good. And this is kind of what I've been planning for, you
And
know.
a quick aside, the reason you have your vessels there is because you use mist to kind of nest them quicker, correct?
Yeah, so I use mist to speed up and hatch these Mara. And by the way, you will need to connect your cold wallet to actually hatch the Mara, uh, because the feature of warm wallet is it can't make any changes to the cold wallet. So because this will burn your vessel and give you a new NFT, which is the Otherside Mara, you do need to connect your cold wallet for that. And so I sped it up. I use this. I use some of my ApeCoin staking rewards and sped this thing up. And I was able to hatch like an uncommon. I think this one's a rare. And then I have a common
So do the different
hunter.
tiers do actions quicker based on their rarity?
Yeah. So if you take a look at, let me actually take some of these off.
So real quick, guys, while Sean's doing that, go ahead and give the video a like if you find this to be helpful in any sort of way, just so more homies can find this video and learn as we put it out.
Yeah, thank you guys. I appreciate everyone rolling up. We got all the homies here, dude. I love it. And if you guys want to talk about certain things or have any questions, keep them coming. You guys make this kind of our favorite part of the day, of the week, actually. It's definitely rivaling the Twitter space. But yeah, it's actually by default, it sorts all your assets by stats. So it says best stats. So right here, you can see that there are, when you hatch your vessel, there actually are different rarities. And in fact, let me actually pull that up real quick. Otherside Wiki did a really great post just kind of showcasing this. Let me pull that up.
Oh, those look so cool.
Yeah. So when you hatch a hunter, this is RNG. It'll give you one of these 5 rarities. And this actually plays into your stats for the Mara.
And so the question I have to ask with this is there a benefit to someone paying, that ape coin to buy mist to speed it up to get one of these versus waiting the 7-day period? Do they get different do they get different stuff, or like are legendaries so limited that you want to push it through because there's only X amount of legendaries, so you want to hope that you're pushing through quicker because maybe the opportunity to get a legendary is a little bit higher?
I think it's just RNG, to be honest with you. You know what I mean? Like, it's just speeding it up.
What's RNG?
What the inevitable random number generator, kind of like it's going to happen randomly. So,
Got it.
I'm sure there's already a set supply, because there is a set supply of vessels. So, they could already work out the math in that way. It's just a matter of revealing it, so to speak. So I don't think you'll get an extra bonus by speeding it up and getting a better shot at legendary, if that's what you're asking.
Absolutely, that is what I'm asking. Like, is there a
Okay.
benefit to someone paying to get it versus someone waiting 7 days? Because there's
Mm,
people who, like myself, like I don't have extra ape coin. I'm not
yeah.
staking ape coin, so I don't really want to pay whatever it is. I hope I still get opportunity to get a legendary or an epic or whatever it might be. So that
Yeah.
that was my question.
You should. I think the benefit is you're going to be able to put those bad boys to work.
Right,
You know what
that's
I
the
mean?
benefit is 7 days worth of farming or
Yeah.
battling or whatever it
Hunting.
is.
Because even though like I took my hunters off, and so I no longer have the shattered game button right here. But I'm going to put that on in a sec. But this is pretty interesting because, okay, it's biogenic swamp. I have a couple of, let me take off a few things except for this farmer. So this farmer, out of all the farmers, this is my most productive farmer, 25%. And that's because this farmer, this Mara is uncommon. So it has 25% farming productivity versus 20%. You see that? And then here's the biggest thing. You gotta have to, you're gonna want to keep an eye on this bottom piece right here. And it's kind of hard to tell, but there is this line that separates it. And there are some titles over here that's green and some titles that are orange. And so these are going to be for your hunting shattered capabilities and production. And the ones in green are all of the metrics and production rate for farming sediment fragments. So it's either like you get to choose. Do you want to like farm sediment fragments so that you know, because other people's going to want those because they're going to transform their Mara to a Kodamara. And once it becomes a Kodamara, it no longer is stuck to one specialty. You can actually do all three roles one at a time, though. Even though that Kodamara will always have the best productivity for their initial specialty. So that's one benefit of transferring, you know, of transforming it from a Mara to a Kodamara is that now you have something along the lines of a Koda that can do all three roles. And so a Kodamara could actually go on to one of those. That'll change, you know, your strategy a lot once you get there. But the thing that I'm doing here is like, okay, let me farm some biogenic swamp. I want at least one farmer on this thing. Okay. And so that's why I put that there. If I put this second farmer on here, this is what's interesting. Shoot.
Now I want to ask you, right? You had that set up
Yeah.
and you removed them. Does that stop your yield, or does that affect it in any way?
Yeah, if I hit you are removing your last farmer, this will reset your fragment harvesting progress. So I'm gonna remove it from there.
That sets you to a brand new situation. So
Check it
whatever.
out.
Okay.
If this is like what a lot of us have been doing is like, okay, because this is a tier 1, I got a base sediment tier 1 base of 5. That's the base value of it. I think a tier 3 will be like 10. So you'll get extra fragments
So
if
the
you have
tiers
tier
affect
3.
that number.
Yeah, and this is not environment tier. Environment tier will affect how many worker slots. This is sediment tier.
Got it.
And so that's the only thing. And that's why on this one, I was like, oh, you know, I have a Cosmic Dream sediment too. Cosmic Dream is the second most rare. Why don't I farm on that Cosmic Dream? That's kind of where my head was at. But let me go back here and be like, okay, I basically want to mess around with the combinations so that I have the best farming productivity. And if I want, I can actually, you know, balance it out with a little bit of hunting, or I can actually just go to a different deed and focus that one purely on hunting. So in this particular case, watch what happens if I put an enchanter. Let's put a regular enchanter on this and see what happens. So as you can see, the production rate, which you can see the rate, it's 7 sediment fragments every 24 hours. So after 24 hours, it'll log me 7 fragments. If I add an enchanter to it, I get 7 every 20 hours. And that's because it increased the speed for which it produces at 15%. So that's what the effect has on here. It also gave me 10% for damage if I decide to if I decide to put a hunter on it as well. But now I got, instead of 7 every 24 hours, I can do 7 every 20 hours. So if I put another farmer, but in this case, instead of 15%, because it's uncommon, it can do 16%. And so now I can do 7 every 17 hours. And that's because look at the speed. It increased the speed of which I can produce. So that's one of the benefits that these enchanters are doing is it's allowing you to farm those sediment fragments much quicker. Now, I can add a coda here, and if I add it as a worker slot, you have to decide for a worker slot, you have to decide whether this is going to be a hunter or a farmer. And this is actually a toggle. So by default, this is talking about total damage per second, 158. And even right now, it's technically doing damage to the shattered in a tier 3 environment at 158 damage per second.
So because you got that in earlier, before the game went down for many of us, we're anticipating that you may have a competitive advantage of X amount of hours ahead based on that ratio of battle value, whatever it may be.
Man, I don't know. We'll
And
see.
like, who knows, right? Because they could
Yeah.
be like, hey, you know what? That was a big pause for everybody.
I also switched it up, because I'm still experimenting. So like I was doing it where I was like, oh, I'm not going to spend any ape coin and I'm just going to hatch my Mars. So I put my coda on an environment tier 1
Right,
and got going on it.
right,
And that was its own leaderboard. Now that I have my coda here, it's on a separate leaderboard because it's now on a tier 3 environment.
right,
So
right.
that's the thing is like, okay, I can do that. It doesn't affect any of the sediment fragments, but watch if I change this and toggle it to a farmer. Now I get 35%. And so what it does is it gives me 60% production with the enchanter speed. Now I'm getting 8 sediment fragments every 17 hours. Right? But here's the thing. What if I put this coda as an enchanter? Let's take a look at the production differences there.
So, and
So
this is something important to talk about as you're doing this, Sean, is playing with this, guys, seems to be very important to figure out what assets you own, which will give you the best ratio of yield for your resource and your deed, right? Because it all seems to matter on where you place your assets.
yeah. Yeah, like look at this, man. Because instead of the actual production rate going up, so instead of 60% production, 8 every 17 hours, I think I would have better production with 7 every 11 hours by using the coda's speed
Wait, so
attributed as an enchanter.
le- indulge me because I'm blind as a bat and I can't see this. I'm purely listening to you. Right now you have two enchanters. One's I believe a common, one's a little bit higher than a common. I can't see what that is.
Uncommon, yeah.
Uncommon. You have your coda there. So you have three enchanter slots. You're on your biogenic swamp, which is a 1 tier.
Sediment tier 1, yep.
Sediment tier 1, and you have one. Can you slide up a little bit? You have one farmer right here, right? So
Yep.
you have one creature farming with three enchanters multiplying the action of that farmer.
And I'm
And
playing with like the equation right here.
so, and this is what I want to focus on because this is an interesting ratio relevance, right? You have 0 as your first number for fragments because we haven't acquired any yet. We just started.
I need
Set
at least 11 hours in this case.
exactly. So sediment tier, what does that say? One base is a 5.
Yep.
Okay.
Tier 3, I
Production.
think, is 10.
We have a production value here, which is 25%. We have a speed, which is 56. And then we have your ratio. And then we have a damage. The damage, I'm not
All this,
entirely sure how that works with the farming and the fighting yet. But the reason I want to say all that is because look at this. So on my end, I have a sediment tier 1 acid land. The acid land is irrelevant. It's a sediment tier 1 biogenic swamp. I only have 3 codas going into this. Then I have, the one farmer nesting. That's not affecting the equation
yeah,
here.
that's great.
We're in the same rate. of 7 for 11 hours.
I love that.
That's very interesting, right? So Sean, go back up a little bit if you don't mind.
Yeah, we're getting the same amount of sediment fragments, and you're doing it with less assets and an environment tier 1.
And it becomes the question of how do you play what's best for you, right? And so once I get this going, and then I have an enchanter nesting in 6 days, I'll be able to put it in there. Now this ratio of 7
Yeah.
and 11 hours should
What's
increase ideally.
what's going to happen is the speed is going to increase if you put another enchanter in. And so therefore, you might get the same amount of fragments, but this number 11 might go down to like 8, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So that's
There,
what's
there
going to
there's
happen.
there's so much opportunity here in front of us, guys, and the other space, you know, other space, other side. The other side doors have not completely opened yet. This is just the first chapter, and seeing what Legends of the Mara has brought in terms of gamification in just the first few hours has been thrilling for me. Sean, I hope it's been just as exciting for you, man. Here's what I would love to suggest we can offer to the community is, besides the fact that we do our other space at PMs, which we love, and we're going to regularly revisit and just talk about whatever important topics that are out there. I think it's going to be crucial for us to figure out how to offer more video content based on Legends of Mara, even though it is a little bit of a passive game. I look forward to covering some of the fighting. I think we'll make a separate video in which we'll cover the game guide and the FAQ, because this has already been an hour-long video and we haven't even looked at those, and that's a lot of informative content. But right now, we're all collectively in this exploration phase where we're trying to figure out, what do we do with our quotas? What do we do with our vessels? Do I decide to push them through that nesting phase and see what I got? Sean, when I watched you do it earlier, I had such FOMO that I don't have ApeCoin to push these quicker. So like for myself, I feel at a disadvantage because I don't have it. I think some people have thought I don't want to use ApeCoin to push these through. It's not that I don't want to, it's that I don't have ApeCoin to push these through. So if I had it, hey, that's great. But I chose to take my ApeCoin and buy quotas, right? So now I have to wait 6 days until I see if these are rare, legendary,
Yeah,
common,
and you
whatever,
don't
and
have to
there you go.
wait for your quotas.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
that's
And
like
so
the
those are
biggest
working.
advantage.
So what do you think, Sean? And I'm gonna make this a quick aside. What do you think these fragments end up being worth? Because I'm relating this to a different game I've played, a different metaverse game. I anticipate there being a dex popping up soon for one of each fragment, where people somehow correspond these fragments to a value of something else, where people can make them tradable. This is just a thought, but like, do you think that's going to happen outside of the Yuga verse? Do you think Yuga will anticipate a dex like that, or is this something that maybe you haven't thought of yet, just out of curiosity?
I mean, we're waiting on the Agora,
Ooh,
So
yeah,
I think that's going to be the most exciting thing when it comes to just being able to trade some of these assets
yeah.
is, and this is also interesting. Like this, these other side vessels, once they hatch, they turn into other side Mara. It goes into this collection.
Hold on, I'm bringing your screen up right now. Okay, first of all, real quick, let's talk about the most important thing. Not an option to buy or sell on OpenSea. And the reason is because OpenSea fucked around and found out. No, but this was a great question you asked earlier, Sean, is if it has to do with royalties and not paying royalties, and they're perhaps trading on X2, Y2, and Blur. How does that suffice? And I think that's just kind of a band-aid until they can offer us the Agora, is kind of what I'm thinking.
Yeah, it's certainly a statement. That's how why I want to bring it up is like you'll notice if you're wondering like, yo, why how come there aren't any listed on OpenSea? That's because you can't. You can't list any of these Maras on OpenSea.
Not
In
an option.
fact, you know, when you end up going to the Legends of Tomorrow website, it actually leads you and says you can buy all of this stuff on X2Y2 or Blur. So I thought that was interesting. You know, it is definitely a jab at OpenSea, considering Blur and X2Y2 don't necessarily, you know, offer protection against creator royalties either. So I feel like this is a strategic move in preparation for whatever Otherside and Yuga has cooking up for their own marketplace.
Absolutely.
That's kind of what I'm thinking. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I can absolutely see that because they have to kind of structure behavior, right? And the first behavior is that royalties should and deserve to be paid based on this statement. And we'll see what else comes from it. But what I take away from that right now, because I've had people ask me this, is if you want to acquire and pick one up or sell one, you absolutely can. You just can't do it on OpenSea. Currently, right now, you can do it on Blur or X2Y2 if you're trying to pick up some or sell some that you may
Yeah,
have.
and going back to your initial question about sediment fragments being worth anything, those aren't mintable yet, so you can't even purchase them yet. But here I pulled up the obelisk on the Otherside website, and this is the part of the obelisk that says the Agora, and
Let's go.
it says Voyagers come together to buy, sell, barter, or trade for what you will need, or craft new items from raw materials. Let us build, create, and innovate with each other. So there's probably going to be things like along with resources, which we haven't even tapped into on the other deeds. There's so many different aspects of these other deeds that we have yet to kind of understand. But Legends of the Mara could very well be showcasing some of the, you know, mechanics and the interface that we would use. Because I can't imagine needing to like farm resources in 3D, you know, having to run this to this area and do this and grind. Like I can imagine more of an interface like this where I can like
100%.
set it up, you know, oh, I got some farmers, let me do that to this deed, boom. Let me make sure to fight off Shattered. Cool, and set it, forget it, you know?
This is something I think you and I and the community have kind of anticipated and ideated around in the past would be they don't need to burn all that CPU to do this harvesting and rendering at this level, right? So to separate it in an action where we play this card game style activity where we're harvesting, we're farming, we're enchanting, that doesn't need to be in a high graphic rendering. That doesn't need to be a 3D representation. This is perfect for what it's accomplishing because this to me seems like a staking mechanism, right? Just the same way many people have said that the heavy metal game has been a long minting experience. This seems to be a staking mechanism in the short term for acquiring fragments and certain things that we may use later to catalyze you know, things we have, right, to get to our Kodamara. So I think this is setting up behaviors. I'm looking forward to seeing this evolve. I'm very curious how the supply shock will actually come into play. And Justin said that like in line with my thought process. So, you know, kudos, Justin, because I agree. There will be a supply shock incoming when people say there's 200,000 deeds on the board and only 100,000 realized so far, potentially another 100,000 TBD. Equate that to the vessels. There is going to be a supply shock purely by ratio. So, very curious to see how all of that plays out. Sean, I know I could talk about this with you for hours upon hours more, but I want to be considerate of the fact that I know you may be a little bit under the weather and I've been drinking whiskey alone.
I'm
So,
good. I'm good.
all right, cool. So,
But if
this
you
is
need
what
to go to the restroom,
you know I do. You know I do. So this is where I say, everyone, please hit that like button. We're going to continue on a little bit more. I actually want to jump over to my screen right now and do exactly what Sean did, but talk about why I've put 3 codas to work
Hey,
Because
before we do that, I
yeah,
just want to like Jordan had asked. I have a sediment tier 3 deed with environment tier 1 and 1 hunter. Should I sell my hunter and buy a farmer since I have a sediment tier 3,
so
or
first of all,
just use my hunter? And I want your take, but I also want the chat's take too.
yeah, the
But go
chat should
ahead.
give all their input, but first of all, we're never gonna give you financial advice on whether you should buy or sell. That's just the first thing I must say. Now, with that said, we can give you our own individual opinions on what we would do if we were in that same position, but it's not, actually like, hey, this is really what you should do, right? Because that is up to you at the end of the day, and this is why we do this.
Good
Um,
point.
what I would say is decide what you want out of this game. How long do you anticipate playing this game, and how important will these fragments be to you when you can get them? Now, with that said, Sean, we've been running an hour. I could go another hour, another 2 hours, but I gotta pee, dog.
Yeah,
So
go
what
for it.
what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna jump off the screen. I'm gonna let Sean digest this, and I will be right back.
Sounds good. All right. So, prefacing the not financial advice, uh, yeah, what Baron said is important. There's two things. You can either, I think you would have the most, because there's a sediment tier 3, like, not everyone's in that position to farm something on sediment tier 3. And so that's one of the reasons why I'm like, oh, if it's sediment tier 3, you should probably be focusing on like farming, because you'll be able to get the max production out of the farming aspect of it. You can put a hunter in there, which is great because it's an environment tier 1. And that'll definitely serve you, but you don't have any advantage with the sediment tier 3 aspect of it. Just because it's a sediment tier 3 deed, it's kind of nice. If you're able to keep both, that would be great. So you can have the option. But I'd be curious to hear what people would what their take is. In my opinion, I'd rather have like a farmer on there than a hunter on there, especially if it's a sediment tier 3. And the other thing is like, yeah, you're either farming sediments or you're hunting shattered. And one of the great things about hunting shattered are the rewards for hunting shattered, which is going to be ship parts. And so you're not necessarily getting fragments to evolve your Mara. You're actually gathering ship parts and more rare ship parts for this next aspect of the game. So that's one of the things that, if you're really excited about this whole like spacecraft kind of building, then start hunting the shattered. If you're excited about this whole like spacecraft, sorry,
My bad. I was just
it's all
thinking.
good. If you're excited about like um evolving your Mara into a Kodamara and then having the flexibility of doing any of the roles, then definitely go for that sediment fragment. But yeah, I like what some of the people are saying, add instead of sell. Vlad is saying farmer first, then evolve to a Kodamara, and then start fighting. The Hustle House is answering PM's question about his daily drink. So, it's some bullet.
So what's my whiskey choice? I said Pappy. It's Pappy Van Winkle. Let's be real honest with you. But daily, I'm not trying to spend
Oh,
$1,000 a bottle.
Pappy. I don't even know if Pappy. What?
Pappy
Never
Van
heard of it.
Winkle. Oh my
Oh,
god.
okay. Is it
During
good?
bull market, I was crushing these bottles. I like
Dang.
$1,200 a bottle. It was good time.
Damn.
It was good times.
I
But
remember you saying like I
but now
remember-
we're drinking that $30 bullet, dog.
Hey, I like bullet, dude.
Oh,
Um
I
Yo,
apologize.
also we got Josh Bad Teeth saying, any reason not to speed up hatch all vessels at one time?
Yeah, fair market, dog. No,
well,
I don't
as
think
as
so.
far as like if you already sped up all of them, then I think it's worth hatching all at one time, even though you won't get the individual dopamine hits.
Mhm.
Just because of the gas. I
Yeah.
think the gas might be a little cheaper because you are essentially burning in a transaction, burning and minting the Mara, the other side Mara.
Yeah, and I realized that with the different set of transactions the other day, I burned something individually. It was $10. I did a batch of like 15 of them at once, and it was like $30. So I think it's just purely that ratio.
Yeah, I
If
think
you
I
got
think you're
like
right.
exactly, if you got cash to burn, go for it. Because Sean's right, the dopamine hit of like the one at a time. But
Sounds
Sean,
like in Top Shot, you know?
bro, I had so much fun watching you reveal yours today. You got some cool vessels. I am gonna have to wait 6 days and 16 hours.
But in the meantime, you'll be able to go and hunt. You got a nice deed that you're
All right,
already
all right.
farming on. So
Yeah,
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 go
yeah.
through
So
yours.
let's go through this. So I'm not gonna do what Sean did and remove them because I don't really know how that works. And I PM, unless you're here and you can tell me if I remove them and put them back, it's all good. But I don't think it is. So for these, I have 8 different deeds available to myself, and what I chose was to farm a biogenic swamp because based on what we talked about earlier, I figured that was the rarest one I had available in my collection. I have 2 biogenic swamps. I have a few infinite expanses, a few rainbow atmospheres, and that's it. I don't have mutant goo. I don't have cosmic dreams. Um, so now the reality becomes like, how do I play this? I have 3 codas. I have 4 vessels nesting, and my immediate thought was that if I were to put 1 coda on a 1 tier deed and maximize the enchanting experience, that I would be able to get the biggest return possible. And I don't think it's a bad return. I just don't know if it's the best return, right? So what I have right now is I have 1 coda farming. I could toggle it off and toggle these off and they'd have their fighting dynamic, but that's not a route I'm ready to go down right now. As of right now, I get 7 of these biogenic swamp fragments every 11 hours. I've extrapolated that math and done it on a week basis, and more or less, I would get 105 ish biogenic swamp fragments over a week period. And now I start to do math. And this becomes the question that I asked you earlier, Sean, of like, do you think these will become dexed? Well, and for anyone who is curious what I mean, but like, will these become dexed? Will these become individually traded on uh other other dexes, right? So in the past, I played different metaverse games, one particularly called Our Planet, which has a resemblance of this game to a degree. And what you would do is you'd get these different assets, right? Different tiered gaming pieces. And what I mean by that, biogenic swamp, infinite expanse, rainbow atmos, these fragments, right? I anticipate that each of these fragments will end up with a different valuation of value. So I actually think that at some point someone's going to create a DEX where we're going to be able to trade X amount of ApeCoin, ETH, whatever the fuck, in a pairing to biogenic swamp fragments, right? So that's how you're going to know what that value is of a biogenic swamp. Someone will do the same thing with chemical goo and so on. Until then,
Yeah, for sure. And that's what the mint event is, you know? So
right.
once it goes to mint, it's on chain. So technically, you
So
should
then
be
the
able to.
price discovery happens.
Yeah, and then we already got supply. And that's kind of why that observation of just even the rainbow, I mean the cosmic dream being the second most rare is a great observation. It's not just chemical goo. So
Right.
it'll be interesting to see the price discovery with that.
So this goes to my point and this is the whiskey and this is me being older in this space, right? Is correlating old metaverse projects I've been in and seen the worst of to the projects that I'm currently in, hoping the best for, right? And what I mean by that is I am very curious how these fragments will be monetized, because each fragment, and I promise you, each fragment will have a monetization value. So biogenic swamp, each biogenic swamp fragment will have a pairing. What will that pairing be? TBD. Who knows who makes that liquidity pool, right? Will that be ApeCoin? Will that be ETH? Will that be USTDC? Whatever the fuck, it will be something. Now, is that something that happens through Bored Ape Yacht Club and the Agora, or is that something through, Joe Blow over here, the community member decides I have a bunch of money, I'm going to make a liquidity pool and pair it towards this? That's just a side thought that I can't get out of my mind, because it's an obvious that will happen. Um, because once we have these fragments and we're allowed to mid them and trade them and sell them, now we have a value proposition, right? So that's why for me, with these, I'm only looking to farm the biogenic swamp. And that leaves me with this kind of odd situation of, now I have a bunch of real estate. Let's imagine
Now
I
go fight on those as far as Legends of the Mara.
well, sure, maybe, but I don't have anything to put on it, right? But I own all these assets. So
You will.
what do I do with that in the short term? Do I start to create an opportunity? Do I start to consolidate and perhaps sell and get more vessels and enchanters and
Mhm.
hunters? What is my particular game plan? And this is something that, I'm not quite sure that I'm ready to explore on camera, to be honest with you.
Well,
No,
I got some general
yeah,
strategy
hit me
that
with
I've
it, hit
been
me with
thinking
it.
about too.
Let's
And
go.
then based on Thickless Cage, he said if I expand the deed right if I
I
expand
almost
the,
spit that whiskey out my nose, dog.
if I expand a deed right now, what will affect the will that affect the supply of fragments in the season? I believe it will. I think
Yeah, it's
what we're
gonna be a
seeing
changing
is,
number, right?
yeah, and that's why Cosmic Dream is what it is right now. Like, I don't think all of the Cosmic Dreams have been expanded. A good majority have not. So, out of the ones that are not expanded, the majority of them are Cosmic Dreams. So that's probably why we're seeing it. So as more other deeds become expanded, I think we'll start to see the global fragments supply go up, and then at least the max. And then as people evolve their Maras into a Kodamara, if they've ingested any sort of sediment fragments, that replenishes the pool for the global fragments as well. So yeah, as far as I'm not, I wouldn't be I was looking at some acid.
Ooh,
I was looking at some acid.
listen. I feel overexposed because all I have is my 3 acids and I have these other ones, and
Mhm.
all I care about is the acids. So I need more, Sean. So let's explore that.
All right, so I'm just going to use otherdex.io as an example. I typed in my address. You can use otherdex.io. Otherside Wiki has a really great tool you can do the same thing with. But what's kind of neat about this is what I like to see is if I look at my collection, um, I want to go first off like sediment tier distribution. So that's one of the things I'm looking at. If you have do you have any tier 3 sediment tiers? Because those would be really great for farming. And like you said, the sediment fragments, those are going to be in demand. And if you have them and they're minted on the chain, then that could actually provide some value and liquid for yourself. So, or use it to convert your Mara into a Kodamara and have even more workers that are more, agile, so to speak. But the other thing is, maybe take a look at your environment tier distribution. And the reason for that is you may want to consider exposing yourself to the different leaderboards for hunting Shattered and earning rewards for ship parts and the other NFT projects that are coming in that have NFTs as rewards. And so, you know, tier 1, yes, you know, you can earn rewards there. They won't be as good as the tier 5 ones, but tier 5 is much harder to achieve considering they have 5 worker slots. And so I just kind of look at like diversifying into a sense. Like if you're too heavy on deeds and not enough vessels, like, yeah, that might not be a healthy way to like maximize your production in Legends of the Mara. Could it come into play for other things like building, you know, and having more, you know, land to build on and experiences? For sure. Maybe down the line, you know, with the ODK coming out and all that. But Legends of the Mara, I would look at kind of, you know, what my environment tier distribution is, what my sediment tier distribution is, make sure that and then the sediment type distribution. So sediment distribution right here. So as you can see, I have 1 biogenic swamp, 2 chemical goos, 2 cosmic dreams, 1 rainbow atmos, but I'm missing infinite expanse. So that's one of the things that I'm kind of looking at as I'm looking for a deed is I want to see if it has infinite expanse. So that way I can make sure I have exposure to each one of the sediment fragments.
Yeah, I mean, as you say that, I realize immediately I don't have Cosmic Dream and I don't have Chemical Goo, right? Like, I made a conscious decision at some point to sell one of my one of my Chemical Goos so I could double up on Biogenic Swamp, right? Because I felt that was a rarer
Yeah, it
uh,
is.
sediment to go after, right? But that was a conscious decision, which left me vulnerable, perhaps, to not having a chemical goo if that matters in some way. And I have a feeling each fragment matters in some way in terms of how they catalyze objects in the future, in terms of how we use them, right? Because we haven't been given, as far as I know, Sean, and please correct me if I don't know this, we haven't been given purpose for the fragments yet, other than they will catalyze objects in the future. So besides that, we're kind of like still figuring it out. And we know season 1, there's a limited amount, whatever it is, there is. So, you know, go after that. And then besides that, season 2 will be a different endeavor.
Yeah, I mean, as far as the sediment fragments, we do know that they are optional in terms of here. So you have the
Love it.
Mara evolution. You have another deed and a vessel. You hatch that, turns into a Mara. Then there's a catalysis event, and you will get traits from the catalyst, which is taken from one of the constellations in the zodiac. So that catalyst mixed with optional sediment fragments. The fact that it's optional is also interesting. Like you actually don't need any sediment fragments, but it did say sediment fragments will attribute to the rarity of your Kodamara. And so I think Kodamaras are going to be very special when it comes to the game pieces in Legends of the Mara, you know, because then you can decide whether or not you want that Kodamara to farm or hunt in each of the worker slots. And that's a big deal, you know, because then you don't have to worry about being stuck in that choice that, you know, I forgot what's his name that, you know, posed the question, Jordan, who posed the question a little bit earlier about like, hey, I got a sediment tier 3, environment tier 1 with a hunter. Should I get a, you know, a farmer? It's like if it's a Kodamar, you don't have to worry about that choice. You can actually switch if you decide like, hey, I have access to this deed right now. I can farm a little bit more. And then, hey, you know what? For this particular season or this amount of time, let me actually attack some shattered so I can, you know, balance out by winning some rewards. So that's one of the things that, you know, I think is going to be advantageous if you end up getting a Kodamara earlier and sooner.
Yeah. Yeah, that's one of the things I can't wait to see is that Kodamara collection, and I had curiosity earlier if that was something anyone had, like, you know, pulled off because of paying for it, in a matter of speaking, but that's not available yet. It sounds like there's certain actions that have to happen before that. So
There's a lot that isn't, you know, that hasn't come into play yet either,
yeah,
that, you know, we will have a big effect, such as friends.
yeah,
Friends
yeah.
friends are going to be a big part of it. You know, they, in the explainer video and I believe the game guide, they list out all the different friends and the projects. And apparently apparently with the friends, you're able to have them help out and defeat the shattered by bringing your friends along, and it's going to help increase your production rate for the damage per second, apparently, and not have to take up any worker slots. So that's going to be huge if that's the case.
I can't wait to see how this game evolves, man, because this is just the first chapter, right? Like, we've waited for Legends of Mara to kick off, and for many people, there has been, and let's be real honest, there's been a I would almost say a 50-50. God, the word's slipping my mind, but, like, people have felt either positive or negative about this, and that most people are somewhere in the middle, because for this particular game, it a benefit is there's not a ton to do. A negative is there's not a ton to do, right? And so for myself, as someone who's been playing actively Rec League and heavy metal, I enjoy the fact that I don't need to be actively doing much. I figure out my strategy, I figure out my ratio of codas to whatever on my deeds, and I set them to go, and I collect my fragments in a week or in however long I choose, right? Some people have said this is not what we anticipated, but the one thing I want to remind people is this is Legends of the Mara. This is not the other side. This is just one aspect of the larger game that is to come. And that's maybe not me telling everyone, but me telling myself, because of how much money we've put into this game. You think, oh, there's going to be so much action. This is a very impactful game based on the staking mechanism, and there's a lot of earning potential based on these fragments. We don't know what the value is of these fragments for me, I'm trying to enjoy this experience of accumulating my fragments and seeing what that value is. Now, when do we discover that value proposition of what each individual fragment is worth? That's still on the horizon line.
Yeah, man.
This has been a hell of a spaces, man, especially because spaces. Listen to me. Listen, this is what happens when I drink and you don't drink, Sean. That's what I'm trying to get at. I've
This
been
is
drinking for an
great.
hour and a half.
Great
You're drinking
spaces.
tea. This is some bull.
No, this is cool, man.
This has been fun.
Yeah, you know, I guess last thing, here's a little bit of information on the friends. These are some of the other collections that can play Legends of the Mara. There's like BAYC, MAYC, 10 KTF, Heavy Metal, Meebits, Cryptodes, Forgotten Runes, Mutant Hounds, Rango, World of Women, and Makeforce Sentinels. Are there benefits to playing with partner collections? For starters, partner collection teammates can add to your hunter team without taking up a roster spot. These partners are also cool cool NFTs in their own right that holders will be able to claim. So that's pretty cool. And then wait, when it says these partners are also cool NFTs in their own right that holders will be able to claim,
Yo, that goes to
So
my question that I've been asking since early on. I apologize for that weird camera angle. Let's get that right. That's one of the questions I've been asking early on is will they be individualized NFTs or will they be like Renga and Wizard NFTs? And that question, that answer gives me more curiosity than answers.
yeah, it sounds like they're gonna have like a card, right? And it'll show like a me bit, you know, like we saw in the explainer video or the gameplay trailer where it showed that me bit holding up the card and it had like the applied primate, it had the me bit with the number. So I think each one of those partner collections will be able to claim that additional NFT for Legends of the Mara. That essentially expands that. So
I just wonder how other communities are involved without people having a negative flooring aspect, right? Like, let's assume that I win a Ranga prize and I'm, the majority of people, they're going to take that and floor it because they want the money, unless they want to be involved with the community. But some people want the money. So, how does Yuga do that in a manner that doesn't affect negatively the floor price of these collaborative projects? So, that's
yeah.
something that's been going through my mind.
Well, apparently like Otherside will build in utility for it as well at some point. But specifically for the friends NFTs, that's separate than the rewards that you're referring to. So
Got it. Got
these
it.
partner collections, like you'll be able to claim if you have one of those partner collections, you'll be able to claim this NFT that you can now use to boost up your hunter stats
Got it.
without taking up a worker slot. And
Okay.
in this case, what's happening beyond season one? Catalysts. The Otherside Zodiac contains 4 seasons, each with its own catalyst. Use one and some optional sediment fragments to evolve your Mara into Kodamara that takes on new abilities and physical traits. But be warned, catalysts are limited. Once they're gone for good. And
Oh,
once you've fed one to a Mara, there's no going back. Use one of the first season's catalysts or wait to see what others appear down the line. The choice is yours. What do you think of that real quick? Like,
so I actually think a lot of that, because that's something Boomer had suggested earlier in our chat was that like maybe you hold on and maybe you see what catalyzes season 2 or season 3 for that matter, right? Like this game is anticipated to be a long run game. It's not just like a few seasons. If everything goes right, this could be a 20, 30, 40 season kind of game. So realistically, do I want to take what I've earned in season 1? Do I want to improve my strategy perhaps in season 2 and get a better item to catalyze? Or do I get a better catalyst by playing the game differently? Like these are the questions we don't know yet, right?
yeah, yeah. But there is something about like the provenance of season one and having Mara that, you know, you
Well,
could have
and
only gotten
so
in
so
season one.
this goes to something Taylor said earlier, and I want to give Taylor props for this comment because it made me think about it all day long. Was if I get fragments from season 1 and there's a certain amount that's only available season 1, do I want to hold on to those for that same said provenance of having season 1 fragments when there may be season 2 fragments of the same thing, right? So we don't know that either. But I thought that was very curious and very interesting that like maybe there's a value in having season 1 biogenic swamp fragments just stacked up for whatever reason, because maybe those are more valuable than season 2 biogenic swamp fragments.
Yeah, I mean, and that's probably why Taylor is focused on farming right off the bat. Like, if I want to, so I think there is something to the provenance of season one catalysts. You know what I mean? Like, Yuga wouldn't put like something that would be like, you know, mid or low it in season one. Like, it would have to be pretty dope. And later on down the line, if you know, like that was the only time that people could have gotten that was season one, I think that's a big deal. But if you don't have enough optional sediment fragments to make it rare, then is it even worth it? Right. And so that's kind of where it's like, well, maybe if you were to focus on farming for season one and get enough, sediment fragments, or, purchase it from someone else, there could be a demand for that, right? Where people are like, yo, I want to be able to have season one because of the provenance. They're either going to need to focus on farming this first season, or make sure they purchase some sediment fragments so they can have a better opportunity at getting a rare, you know?
Listen, was I lying at the beginning of the episode, guys, when I said this might have been one of the most important episodes we've ever had? I stand by that statement still, right now, that at episode 9 of OTHERspace PM, this is the most important episode we've ever had. Because we've been looking forward to this particular game opening for so freaking long. And this isn't even other space FM. This isn't even other side opening and allowing us into the metaverse. This is just a taste of what we get to have fun with, right? So I gotta say, this is definitely episode 9, the most important episode of other space FM we've ever had.
And OTHErspace PM.
Oh yeah, that's what I meant.
Oh, gotta love it. Hey, and
Uh,
also thanks to everyone for pulling up in the Other Space Discord today. Like
yeah,
that thing was jam packed as we were, like Legends of the
we had
Mar wasn't even up.
no,
It was
and we had,
down.
like, over 30 people hanging out in the community. That may not sound like a tremendous amount, but I promise you it is.
Yeah, you know what? I would love to hear more strategy as everything unfolds. A lot of people are trying to figure things out. One of the things that's cool about hunting right now is like it's getting points for hunting, but I believe in order to build that combo meter up, you need to start switching the skills, and that's what requires you to be a little more active, because the combo meter will help. But I don't think you can go wrong at this point. Try things out. This is about experimentation. It's about working with what you got. And
Yeah,
if
that's
you're
an
in a
insanely
situation,
valuable point, Sean.
yeah, do what you can. And if you're in a position, even like yourself, Jason, where you can like assess and you're like, oh, you know what? Now I'm realizing I'm in a position where I don't even know what to do with these deeds. Like they're not even working for me right now. They're not working for me to get rewards. They're not working for me to get sediment fragments. And so perhaps there's a way I can shift that into something productive where I actually am extracting value out of these.
And
And
I
so,
promise you I've been thinking about that all day long. That's the only thought I've had is, what do I do with these extra resources that aren't doing anything? How do I monetize? How do I valuetize? Making up a word there. But how do I extract value from these assets that I own? And you correlate them to, like, let's imagine real world realty, right? Like I own property and I have these property that have access to these assets. How do I choose to use them? I'm not harvesting these assets myself. So what do I do? And this is a problem people they're gonna face and they're gonna have to figure out.
yeah, and you know what? Like a lot of those deeds you got were also based off of things that could come into play later on, right? Like your
100%.
Tavo and the resources that you have. So there's still a lot that Legends of that other side has yet to kind of expand on. And
Yeah,
this is the beginning of it. So it very well may come into extreme value later on down the line. But
right.
for Legends of the Mara, that's where you can maybe strategize on specifically what are you doing with Legends of the Mara. Um, because now we have some things that aren't necessarily based on speculation. We have things that, this Coda has these abilities, this Mara has these effects on these rewards.
Right.
And
Right.
so now you can get into some like legitimate strategy without too much speculation. So I'm excited for that.
I'm looking forward to making some content based on some specific things, like talking about the fighting capabilities of Kodas, talking about strategy, reading the FAQ and the game guide, and breaking that down. But more so, what I want to say is thank you, Sean, for taking the time to hang out while you're not feeling 100, because this was such an important conversation, and you gave us 100% of you today, and
Oh,
it
you
was
too, brother.
appreciated. Now
You
I tried
too,
my
brother.
best, man. The whiskey got the best of me, but I got
You,
chicken. I got chicken on the way. It's being delivered thanks to
dude,
Postmates. We need a sponsorship from Postmates. Uh,
well, throw in your Postmates code right now, so
yeah,
that
shit. Listen, guys, just send me ether. All right, I'll buy some chicken later. Um, I look forward to doing this a lot more with you guys. We have a lot of great content coming out this week. I believe
dude,
on Saturday
tomorrow.
we're gonna have
Tomorrow.
what? What's tomorrow? Oh, let's talk about tomorrow. No, no, no. Tomorrow is important, but this Saturday we should be having another deck side episode premiering. So look forward to having that up.
We
Thursday
just
is
had one with Jerry, which was really
yeah,
great. A nice deep
super OG.
convo. Yeah,
He was
lots of
very
insights.
insightful.
Yeah.
We have our other space FM, because I'm cognizant now. On Thursday, our spaces, and then tomorrow, Sean, let's talk about that real quick.
Yeah. Board Silly. This is going to be like Board Below's um metaverse comedy show
Yeah,
event for apes, all apes. So mutants, BAYC, you can claim and token proof. You can send Aaron a DM if you don't have one of those and you just absolutely want to attend. It should be really fun. We are like so excited to actually kick off the event by doing a pre-show, and we're gonna do our thing. Maybe talk a little Legends of the Mara. We'll kind of let you know what's going down right after us. You're gonna have Caruso, who's gonna be spinning. And so
he's
it'll be
good.
some
He's good.
some good vibes. And yeah, it's after Caruso, awesome stand-up comedy show hosted by Aaron Haber and featuring amazing comedians from Comedy Central, The Tonight Show, Jimmy Kimmel, America's Got Talent, and more. So a
I'm
lot,
looking forward to it.
yeah, a lot of the comedy space, people who aren't in Web3 are participating in this as well. And so it's a pretty cool bridging of, what could be done. And it's sponsored by the BAYC Council. It's their first metaverse sponsored event. And so
Yeah,
we're just so excited to be a part of it. We think that there's going to be way more of these later on down the line, especially when Otherside launches, right? Like how many digital experiences will we want to and be able to experience with each other? Lots. We got Ape Fest in Hong Kong. Like,
oh,
there's
bro.
going to be people that's going to be showing up there. So this is
Yeah.
just the beginning.
Let's not even get started on Eric Reed's post and his blog about what's to come with Ape Fest and the other side and how excited we are. But you're absolutely right. Aaron Haber and this comedy club experience that's to come tomorrow will be fun. That's all we look forward to. I've never been to an online metaverse comedy club experience. So not only am I looking forward to having a fun time kicking off the show with you, but I'm looking forward to a fun time of just hanging out and enjoying the comedians do what they do, but in a new environment, which I've never experienced, which is a metaverse comedy club. So that should be quite unique, and I think it'll be quite funny, man. Based on how fucking hilarious Aaron is, and I haven't met the comedians who are going to be on there,
Yeah, he
but
got some friends.
that little lineup you explained, I'm like, yeah, that looks like heat. All right, guys, listen. We appreciate all of you hanging out. If you haven't already, hit that like button. Sean, I think it's only right that we come back with some content. Maybe we'll break down the FAQ and the game guide because we didn't even touch on that today, and we're almost at 2 hours. That's how much there is in this game, guys. And we will
Look,
absolutely come back
a
and
lot
break
of
it down.
people can go to the website lotm.otherside.xyz. They made a video so you don't have to read it. Honestly, the explainer video explains so much. Watch that a few times. We'll give you our insights instead of regurgitating like the game guide. I think what's more beneficial is going through like the strategy and like what are you doing, Jason? What
Yeah,
am I
strat's
doing?
important. Strat's
Yeah,
important.
I think if we double down on the strategy sessions, then if we can understand the meta that's at play, then I think that's what people will benefit most off of. The people who are able to figure that out will be in an advantage. So
Beautifully said.
let's continue to do that. Keep engaging. Everyone, thank you for pulling up. We really appreciate. Jason's throwing up
I was just
Otherside
about
gang
to
signs.
no, it's peace sign, double peace. Listen, I've had a whole whiskey, barrel, and I love all of you guys. It's been a blast breaking this down. Dave's hot chicken is being delivered out the door as
Oh,
we
nice.
speak. I gotta get that hot, spicy chicken inside of me. I look forward to continuing this conversation with all of you tomorrow.
He's got his chicken fragments
Yo,
that
if
he's
you
about to
haven't
ingest.
joined our Discord, that is a poppin' spot, and I
Hell
promise you
yeah.
it is a valuable opportunity for you to meet other people who are building and doing cool shit like yourself.
Man,
So
it was cracking today. Pull up in the cord.
it's important to be honest with you because if you don't have a lot of time, but you can pop it on, you can learn a lot. So come join us, guys. We're gonna wrap up right now, Sean. I appreciate you tremendously. Love you, bro. Love
Love you, bro.
everyone hanging out with you, with us this evening, and
Yes.
thank you for spending close to 2 hours with us as we broke down the Legends of the Mara and the Board Ape BAPE collab. You know what? No, I'm not gonna get to that because I'm gonna
It's
all
gonna
right, I
get
love you guys.
chicken.
Yeah, yeah, I don't wanna give away some shit. I love you guys. Good night.
Peace.